It is true. I've now retired as a professor. And in my teaching hospital, the CMD, the dean, the provost, they were my medical students. We've been doing this thing for more than 50 years, trying to control this population, control maternal death, and all these issues. But we don't seem to be succeeding. And that is why we are here. So I want to thank the DRPC, other partners, PAN, M1, their president is also one of us, for coming to brainstorm. And like Professor Ladipo said, at the end of this, it should not end in this room, because it's like going to preach in the church and all the people there are the choir and the postulants and so on. They are preaching to themselves, the same people. So we have to find a way to go out. SOGON has members all over Nigeria. That is our strength. We have been involved in training people on this family planning with other partners. We receive project grants and we implement them. But after doing all this, the acceptance has to be there. It is not just a matter of commodities. Commodities have to be there, but people have to be willing, and that is where our advocacy comes. I think we who are in so-called privileged positions, especially those in the traditional institutions, in religious institutions, should be able to tell their people too, people under them, people who listen to them, that this family planning is important. I think one of the reasons why we had high, family size, was that in the past, a lot of children died. So women wanted to have a certain number so that if a certain number died, they will still be left with 2 or 3. But now, if we have good health services and people are surviving, there's no reason for any woman to have 10 children. First of all, the more you go, the more risk you take, and therefore likely to die. And then the resources are not there. We can go on and on forever. But I know that some very successful nations, China, had a policy of 1 child. They didn't die, but they are doing better than us today. Most white European countries, some of them don't even have children at all. There was a time they were writing about prime ministers and so on who don't have children. But here we think that it's an asset to have 5, 6, 7. If everybody in Nigeria today with 240 million has another 5 within the next 5 years, what will happen? We will be 1 billion. We will be the biggest, most populous country in the world. So we are going into very galloping population growth with limited resources, with no education, and so on. So we've been talking about these things. So this is very good that we are here. But then the policymakers.
We are here to discuss population issue. As someone who has been in this space for about 4 decades, I feel very, very sad at the situation we are in today, because we have demonstrated limited political commitment. And this is why we are where we are today. The current population of Nigeria is estimated to be almost 220 million or so, and about 42% under the age of 15 years. Those of my vintage, those above 65 years of age, are barely 3%. I see many people with gray hair like myself, who are the privileged few to have survived. If you look at the population profile, the average age is about 18%, 18 years or so. Fertility is still high. I think it's about 5. But more significantly, the maternal mortality ratio has deteriorated. transition of this country to move from this deplorable state to what appears to be a civilized nation. Family planning must be central to everything that we do. We cannot continue to reproduce recklessly. We are reproducing recklessly, so we have about 80 million children out of school. We have about 140 million or even more multidimensional poverty. The current economic situation, I was reading one of the pamphlets, it says it's affecting the low-income group. No, ladies and gentlemen, it is affecting me. It is affecting you. A tuber of yam in Lagos last week was 10,000 naira. How many of you can afford that? Ladies and gentlemen, let me challenge you to professor. If you are a non-medical professor, what is your monthly salary? Your monthly salary before deduction at the highest level is 477,000 naira. As a non-medical professor. Ladies and gentlemen, we are being affected too. Many of my colleagues are not buying tomatoes anymore. They are using cucumber instead to make stew. We are overpopulated, and if we do not plan, we plan to fail, and we have failed. Something has to be done. Something is being done. At the policy level, I want to commend the women who have headed family division, family education. The policies are there. The blueprints are there. We even got the policy approved to have free contraceptive services in public institutions. But what is lacking is government at the highest political level, commitment at that level to sustain availability of contraceptive methods, as well as other essential commodities. We are struggling at the national and subnational level. Therefore, with this new administration that is pro-health, we hope there will be substantial change. And I think in the 2024 budget, there's money for planning commodities. We have to follow it up that that money is released on time. The problem is that sometimes there's allocation, but money is not released on time. Ladies and gentlemen, as I've always said, I don't want to take too much of your time. One, we must evangelize family planning. We must evangelize family planning. You must talk about it. Talk about it at home. Any family that fails to plan plans to fail. The period is gone when you are your brother's keeper. Today you are on your own. Everybody for himself, God for all. Two, we must talk about family planning in the church, in the mosque, and we must use all methods of communication to promote family planning. Promote a smaller family planning size. Ladies and gentlemen, let me rest my case here. Finally, if we fail to plan, ladies and gentlemen, nature will do it for us. And nature will do it without mercy. That is the case we're going through now. Thank you very much.
So thank you. There are several policies that are in place beyond the health sector, not only in the health sector. But of course, health sector is a critical contributor to population management. So in the area of reproductive, maternal, newborn and child health and family planning, there are several policy documents that we have in Nigeria, including policies with engagement with the private sectors on how to improve access to family planning commodities. Because what is most important is that family planning, we need to acknowledge, is a game changer With family planning, every woman is guaranteed that 30% saving lives. So if you are not exposed to pregnancies, you are not at risk of dying from pregnancy-related causes and childbirth. So it is a right issue, and Nigeria has signed into that declaration. Since 2012, Nigeria was providing free family planning commodities, and this is support from the federal government of Nigeria, which the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu remained committed to that, to the rights of women, to improving the health of mothers and children, including improving access to reproductive health commodities. And when I say reproductive health commodities, there are a wide range of commodities. Looking at it from antenatal clinic, delivery, and postnatal, plus family planning commodities and nutrition. So this administration is committed and is still continuing to do that. We're still implementing that. Family planning commodity procurement is within our 2024 budget. It's approved. But I want to seize this opportunity to plead with subnational government. This is just like a tip of an iceberg. It's just a catalytic support by the federal government. Federal government cannot do it alone. The responsibilities lies with the subnational government. Every state government must have a dedicated budget that is dedicated to the improvement of the health of women and children. Today, Nigeria has one of the highest burden of maternal death and also newborn deaths, if you look at the picture globally. So federal and state government must have a program, must have a dedicated account for reproductive health commodities in their state as an integral part of their efforts towards improving the health of women. And family planning is part of it. So if you have a budget for paracetamol, for instance, you must have a budget for reproductive health commodities. It's a life-saving product. And it is indeed the game changer. So this is a message I want to pass on to the subnational level, and we continue to advocate to our state governors, the traditional institution, up to the local government level to program for that. Because once we're able to achieve that, it is a big game changer, not only in population management, but in our overall national development and our security. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Agreements.
Oh, okay, just tell us about the population. You were talking about population as relates to family planning.
Yes, some of us that are in the field for some time now, if you look at the three things you see in life, you know that the country is in a demographic crisis, and that is population crisis. When you have a youthful bulge, 75% of our population is under the age of 34. That's huge. Secondly, if you don't invest properly in that youthful bulge, what will happen? They become restless. The first thing that happens is that the ones that are what we call global citizens, who are well trained, who can get jobs outside the country, they start leaving. They start emigrating. And you can see the Japa syndrome. It's become a slang now. Then the second thing that happens, the ones that did not leave because of because they don't have the technical skills, they still live. And what we call non-skilled immigration, that is the one that is dangerous for a country. Remember that when this man came into power, Buhari, he brought back 20,000 young people from Libya, waiting to cross over to Europe. They were held there. Now the last thing is that when you see nationals killing nationals, you can see a lot of insecurity around the country. OPC started in the southwest to protect the Yorubas. There is restrictions in the Niger Delta. There is kidnapping in the southeast, led to the formation of Bakassi. There is ethno-religious crisis on the plateau. There was Boko Haram in the northeast. Then came banditry in the northwest. Now, no place is safe in Nigeria. So it's complete. We're in a crisis. So, but
How can we address this?
to address it, this youthful population, this is the time, first of all, we will look at the thing that drives that population. That is high fertility rate. There are 5 intentional, deliberate steps a country must take in one generation. And that generation is 20 years. Subsequent governments must invest in family planning. we must reduce our fertility rates. It's not a question that there will be 450 million in this thing and there will be giant of them. We'll be eating each other. So, because the resources are has limits, not limitless. Then the second one is that we invest in our healthcare sector to make sure that women who ordinarily will have 10 children, but because they feel that the 5 or 6 will die, that's why they're having so many. So we must make sure that women don't continue to die. And family planning reduces maternal deaths by 30%. In fact, family planning is the most strategic purchase in health. Then the third one is you already have a youthful bulge. You must invest in educating and giving them skills and ability to be able to be hired, or they will be able to hire themselves. That way, they start producing, that our GDP will increase. But most importantly, income per capita, that is real measurement of poverty or wealth, is income per capita, not GDP. Then the fourth one, ease of doing business. The Nigerian government must make sure that Nigeria is a place a young person can aspire, get venture capital, get all the support to grow his or her business. And then finally, the fifth one, which is a country with civility, a country where there is fairness, there is transparency, there is accountability, and there is justice. Once we do those 5 things, Nigeria will soar. But we are not going anywhere until we reduce our fertility. That's numero uno. And we have should I say, a chance by 2030, if we bring down our 5.3 fertility rate to 4, then we'll be in a transition to go into demographic dividend. So we like what DRPC is doing. DRPC is getting all the stakeholders to keep talking about this. This research that I just finished doing was supported by DRPC. So we're working, Association for the Advancement of Family Plan, we're working collaboratively to make sure. By the 29th of this month, we're also going to have a huge conversation on family planning accountability. So these are the things that we need to do for us to soar as a country.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Boss wants to, they want to take the boss.
If you ask, I won't take the boss.
Okay, so are we good?
Yes, sir.
We're looking at, we have a discussion on population crisis. What's the RPC's position on this?
Well, like every other civil society, what we're doing is doing the research. So DRPC is a research organization, and from the data that we've been getting, and which is somewhat in alignment with the theme that is looking at Nigeria and all over the world to embrace inclusive data. What we're doing is looking at the data that we currently have to inform government that the population that we have, if left unchecked, might predispose us to more challenges than good, especially as human capital development is not where it should be from the analysis of the human capital development that was done last year. We haven't done a census in the last 18 years, which is indicative of the policies that we've been churning out in that period have not been informed by current data to drive that process. Even when you look at issues around population dynamics, health, education, even social investment, all of these things rely on the use of data. So we're calling on government to invest in the census, invest in using data for policy making to drive policy making and policy implementation. As a civil society organization, we've been doing this the last 30 years, calling on government for inclusive process to get to where we should get to.
Okay. In your opinion, with the current economic realities in the country, should Nigerian government still be spending money on sensitizing the citizens on family planning?
Well, what we're calling for is not so much desensitization, because that's already ongoing in many ways. So there's been a lot of sentinel processes through NOA, civil society, even government, even National Population Commission. So what we're asking for is for government to fulfill their commitment to the funding of family planning. Nigeria hasn't met the minimum contributions that, as part of the counterpart funding for family planning. What that means is that we may not be able to manage our population in terms of limiting the number of children that families can have within the period. And with this financial constraint, what that means is more people would probably give birth to more children and increase the financial burden on their family, and the less likelihood that they are able to take care of those children. So it's more population for the country with limited resources. So this is why if government invests in family planning, they can begin to reap the demographic dividend as a result of that process. There's been many studies to back that family planning is a sure way to demographic dividend, and if you invest in family planning, the counter investment that you will receive in 10 to 15 years, it's about $10 to $15 to $1 that you invest. So there is the evidence to back that this is a foolproof to achieving demographic dividends. So this is why we're calling on investment into procurement of family planning commodities, so that there is a method mix both at public and private sector for Nigerians.